All right. Hi, guys. Welcome to today's talk with Product School. We have a very special guest with us today. I just want to do a quick check and make sure that everybody can see and hear us. So looks like everything is okay. So today's guest is coming to us. He was a product manager for Broadband TV and also organizer for Product Tank and Product Hunt in Montreal. And he's currently a coach in product management and marketing. So please welcome Pedram Dara. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. I'm pumped to be here.
Awesome. Can you tell us a little bit about your background, how you got into product management?
Sure. Actually, like most product managers, I didn't have a typical path to product management, but I started at this company called Broadband TV, which today is the world's largest online video or YouTube network. But I actually started as an analyst. So when I started, my job was just to find opportunities on YouTube for content owners to claim their copyrighted content. That's how it started. It so while I did that for a few months, I just I was just always hanging out with people in the R&D team, and obviously I had some technical background back in the day, and I had done some product work, but never within like a software company. And this was an interesting company because it was kind of like where software and media meets, which two of the areas that I'm passionate about. So as I was just hanging out and trying to talk to the CTO, the designers, the developers, they always saw me as someone who had passion for building products. And while they were building internal products, every time there was a bug, I would just go in there and report the bug, or I would make suggestions for making it better. And the company back then actually didn't even have a full-time product manager yet. So as they saw that I was just really passionate about building products, they just let me kind of keep these two jobs for a period of time to see if I'm a good match or not. And I guess I ended up being a good match, because then they offered me to stay on as a full-time product manager. So I kind of shift from that department. I joined the R&D team, and I was there for about a year and a half. And we launched web-based products for YouTubers to help them optimize their videos on YouTube, get better views, and I help them develop like algorithms for collaborations and optimization on YouTube. And since then, also then I moved to Montreal, and I've been consulting and coaching since then.
Okay, wow,
that's the short story.
Awesome. Well, I know you put together a presentation for everyone today, so I'm going to give you some time to share your screen with us.
Awesome. Let me do that.
Also, guys, if you look to the right-hand side of the YouTube video after the presentation, we're going to be opening up for Q&A, so you'll be able to type in your questions there, and we'll be answering as many as we can following the presentation.
All right, that should be full screen now. Let me know if everything's good on your side.
Looks great.
Perfect. So should I get started?
Absolutely.
Cool, awesome. So hi, everyone. Pretty much my presentation today is going to be about actually how to leverage your own passions and things that you're really passionate about, and how to turn that into a product. So either you're trying to get a job as a product manager, which I highly recommend. The best resume you can ever send is a link to a product you worked on. Either it's big or small, doesn't matter, but just being able to show to a potential employer that you've been able to actually take a concept and all the way to bring it to the market is probably one of the best ways to get a job. But even if you're not looking into getting a job and you want to just do something for yourself, I'm hoping this presentation should help you tap into some of the passions you already have in order to turn it into a successful product. So let's just dive right into it. I have a 10-step framework, but for the sake of this presentation, I cut it to 5. And I really believe there are 5 key steps to building a successful product. And I'll just walk quickly through that. So obviously, first one is passion, which is the topic of today's call. And this is really about finding out what is your gift, what is it, something that you're really good at, and so that hopefully you can build a product around that, because building products is not easy. Taking it to the market is not easy. And obviously, if you're not passionate about what you're doing, chances of giving up is a lot harder, which is why I usually start with that. Second one is people, right? So now that you know, all right, this is something that you're passionate about, at the end of the day, you're trying to serve other people, right? So this is when I say people, it's like all about finding customers and people that actually you like to serve by leveraging your passion. Step 3 would be identifying a problem that these people have, so that you can hopefully then build a solution around that. Step number 4 would be piloting it, and I'll get into all of these right after this, but this is really all about creating like a very small solution for that problem and piloting it, putting it out there and trying to validate the real need for it before you actually end up building a product. And last one is positioning it, right? So like, why should people use your product or service? And positioning is all about how to stand out in a crowded marketplace. So that obviously it's a very competitive space nowadays. And in order for you to have a successful product, positioning is one of the most important things you should focus on. So step number one, passion. And this is really all about finding your profitable idea based on your existing passions and expertise. And a lot of times it's really hard for people to find out what their passions are, what are the things they should pursue. And there's a super simple framework. It's like, I mean, if out of everything that you're passionate about, if you could just put them in 3 different buckets, it would be like what you love doing and what you're good at and what the market needs, right? And those could be all different things, right? Because you might love something, but there's something else you might just be really good at, but not necessarily love doing it. But then there's stuff that market needs, right? So there's a super simple Venn diagram that you might have seen it maybe somewhere else, is where like you just create a circle, put some of things that you love doing in there, and then you create another circle, which would be for things that market needs, right? Things that actually people are willing to pay for, and then what you're good at yourself, right? So, and the magic happens where all of these 3 meets, right? Because if you only do something that you love doing, but market doesn't need it, not gonna be successful. Or if you just do something you're good at, but you don't love doing it, then you're gonna give up again. So this is all about finding that sweet spot where all these 3 collide, and hopefully you'll be able to have your profitable or successful idea over there. And 3 questions to help you with that is to just ask yourself, like, what do you consider to be your superpower, right? Like, what is it that's so special about you that other people don't necessarily have it? And or what is it that makes you come alive, right? Like sometimes I say, like, what is it that makes you forget to eat? You know, like if you just there's something that you can just work all day long on it and you don't even have to eat, that's probably a good thing. And what is one single topic that you're willing to dedicate a full year to learn more about, right? Because if the topic that you're trying to build a product around is not something that you're willing to dedicate at least a year to learn more about it, then that's a good sign that maybe you're not completely passionate about that. So you want to find something that you're willing to dedicate that kind of time to it. And step number 2 is the people, right? So now you want to choose the exact type of customers or users that you wish to serve, right? So now that you know, like, all right, this is something I'm passionate about and I want to now take that to the market and do something with it, you got to find a group of people where you can serve by your passion. And there's a 3-step framework to do that, which is all about researching, segmenting, and targeting. Because when you're just trying to launch a new product, you won't be able to serve everybody in the world. You have to start with a small group. So you want to research your customers' needs, perceptions, and preferences to identify a real need, right? Because people have different needs. They also have different perceptions, right? Like how they see the market, how they see the other products out there, how they see their problem is very different from people to people. And their preferences, you know, like some people enjoy you're paying more to use Apple products. Some people don't want to pay more and they want to like have a Windows laptop instead of a Mac laptop. And it's totally cool. There's really no right or wrong. It's just people have different preferences, right? So you want to make sure during your research phase, you look into all of those. And then once you have that, you want to now segment these different type of potential customers into different buckets, right? Because you might identify a group of people that you like to serve, but again, there might be a different segment of those people, right, with different needs. And usually you want to try to come up with at least 3 or 4 different type of segments of customers that you can serve. But this is the most important part, because when you're starting, you also won't be able to serve all of them. So then you want to target on one specific segment, or sometimes this is called the customer avatar, to dominate. Because if out of these people, all the people in the world, you're putting them, all those that you want to serve, you're putting them in 3 or 4 different buckets. And then you're saying, you know what, I'm just going to grab this single bucket. And hopefully it's the one that has been underserved, maybe like other competitors are not looking into. And then you want to just start there and try to make those people the happiest possible before you move on to the other segments. And a few questions to help you with that would be asking, where do these people spend their money, right? So what are other products and services that they're already buying? That should send you a good signal into so understanding of what kind of people they are. And then where do these people spend their time, right? So like that's another thing, like where are they hanging out already, so that you can go there and find these people. And then what's the potential you see in helping them, right? Because if you see this group of people, but there is a potential that their life could be transformed or be better by the product that you're building, then you should be able to see that potential in them. So when you talk to them, you can kind of communicate from that point. And that brings us to the next one, which is problem. So step number 3 is really identifying a problem or opportunity sometimes that people want to pay for a solution, right? So the moment you know what group of people you're trying to help, then the next thing you got to do is like making sure you're identifying a real problem, right? Something that they actually are looking to pay for a solution. And I use the example of these three companies that most people probably have heard of, is because they all started with the problem, not the solution. So Dropbox started because the founder had the problem of not having access to his files on the go. Uber started because the founders couldn't find a cab during New Year's Eve, I believe. And then Airbnb also started because they couldn't find affordable hotels sometimes during the conferences, right? So all of these companies didn't really start because they already had a product or solution. They all started because the founders themselves had a problem. So which is why you kind of want to fall in love with the problem, because the solution could change from time to time. But if you enjoy solving that problem, then you're in a good place. And then you want to ask yourself, is this a pain or pleasure, right? Like, is the problem something that people want to get rid of a pain, or do they want to just add some pleasure to their life? And does this problem, the solution that it requires, is it really a must-have or a nice-to-have, people? And how is it currently being solved, right? Because a lot of times you might think, well, I haven't seen a solution for this. You know, this is a problem that nobody's looking into, but that may not always be the case, because maybe they're already solving it, but it's just in an inefficient way. So in the software world, a lot of times could be using a spreadsheet. So people might be using a spreadsheet in order to solve that problem. And then you come in and you launch a software product where it just looks better than the spreadsheet and it just works faster. So those are usually good opportunities. And a few questions to help you identify the problem would be, first of all, asking how many other people have this problem, right? I mean, you want to make sure that there's a big market there, right? If it's just like 50 people in the entire world who have this problem, is it really worth it to build a solution around that? And also, does it demand a painkiller or a vitamin? You know, is this problem something that people are willing to pay right away in order to have it resolved? Or is it something that they just want to take a vitamin and avoid it? But hopefully you want to focus on problems that actually require painkiller, because you can get faster validation from the market. And then also, do you have domain experience or expertise to solve it? I mean, like if you're trying to solve a problem that you yourself don't have it, or you don't know how to solve it, it's going to be really challenging. So you want to make sure that you're actually trying to solve a problem that you yourself have the domain expertise to solve it. And the step number 4 would be to pilot it, right? So this would be a lot of times like you want to right away jump into building the product or the solution once you know what the problem is. But I don't recommend that, because basically if you end up doing that, you might just build something that you don't know if people need or not yet, because not until they actually sign up for the product, you will never know if that was a real need or not. So piloting is a way to validate the need for what you're launching before it's even built. And the way and the reason I use that is because I personally actually used to work in the entertainment industry for a couple of years, and that's something I learned from that industry, was that most TV shows that you see actually start with a pilot episode, right? They don't just go ahead and shoot an entire series. So they just create one pilot episode, they put it out there, they get feedback, and if it's positive and people like it, then they actually get the green light and go ahead and produce an entire series. Same applies to movies, especially those with a lot of visual effects and Hollywood blockbuster movies. They usually create like a sequence of that movie. They show it to audience, and if people like it, then they actually go and create the rest of the movie. So once I saw that, I'm like, well, then products can also start with pilot programs, right? So instead of you actually creating the solution, you can just create a pilot program around that, and then you get to work with early adopter people who already have the problem, and then you try to co-create the product by working with them. A lot of times people call this like a concierge MVP. You know, it's like sometimes the product doesn't even exist. You're doing everything manually in the background, but the customers just kind of feel like the product already exists, and you do that enough until you have a good number of customers or users using your product. Then that's just pretty much the best validation you can get, that okay, now I know this is something actually the world needs, so now let's go and spend the time and effort and energy to building a full product. And what you really need to validate this idea by running a pilot program is, all you need is pretty much a minimum irresistible offer. So this could be like, if the product that you're going to be launching let's say could be $100 a month. Like if it's a SaaS product that you're going to charge $100 a month for, what you do is that you tell people like, hey, you know, this could be, you can use it for $50 a month for the first 6 months or first year. So you give them an offer that is really good, and they get to start using it right away, and they basically get that in return. So they get 50% off because they don't pay the full price tag, but also in return you get their feedback and you start working with them right away. But you also want to create a sense of urgency for people, because it's a pilot program. It means it's not going to last forever. So it's a short period of time where you would be offering it. So this also it allows you to find out if the problem people have is a real one or not. Because if you tell them you're doing this pilot program for about a week or two and they're still not up to try it, then that's a good signal that maybe it was not a really painful problem for them. Because if it was, then they'll just jump on any solution that you might be having. And lastly, you want to have some warm leads or introductions, because this wouldn't work with cold traffic, right? Because obviously you don't actually have a solution yet. You're just trying to work with people. So a lot of times you want to tap into your own network, or if you don't have access to those people, then you want to look into other people's networks and audiences to see if there is a way you can get introduced to them in order to show them your pilot. And lastly, it's to position, right? So now that you have a pilot solution for the problem that you're solving, it's a crowded marketplace, right? So you want to find a way to actually stand out from the crowd. So you want to position and promote your offer to stand out in a crowded marketplace. And how would you create a real differentiation in the market? It really comes down to price, place, promotion, and I'll dive into that so that you can see how it works. So you want to price your product based on the value you create for your customers and not your cost to make the product, right? So let's say if you're creating product that could be used for a local restaurant, but also Fortune 100 companies, then you want to ask yourself, is the value really the same, right? The value that you're going to create with this product will, of course, be different for a local restaurant than it is for a Fortune 100 company. But a lot of times, maybe the cost to actually create the product might be the same for both of those case scenarios, right? But what you want to do is you want to always focus on value-based pricing rather than a cost-based pricing. And that comes down to what kind of value you'll be creating for those users and customers. So if, let's say, if they're spending $10 on your product every month, is your product at least in return giving them back $30 either in worth of money or time, right? So that they feel like they have an ROI on what they're spending on your product right away. And then you want to place your product in locations where your potential customers are already spending time, especially where you can find them in groups, right? Because by knowing that where these people are, then you can just be able to better position your product over there, right? So because you're like, all right, I know this type of people that I'm trying to serve, they're spending their time online or offline sometimes in these forums or in these communities. And then you want to go there and be able to better position your product exactly where these people are, and especially if they're in a group, right? Because then, you know, basically it's a more scalable strategy. And then you want to promote your product by using the bullseye framework. This is from the book called Traction. And it's to get traction for your pilot offer, one marketing channel at a time. This is all about finding a few channels that you feel like it's going to get you the best results when it comes to finding those customers. And then you want to just pick the one that has the most chance of acquiring customers. And then you try to dominate that one channel and then move on to the next. Because a lot of times new startups or new products don't become successful, not necessarily because the product wasn't good, but because people end up spreading themselves too thin and they try to be everywhere. And obviously, when you're starting out, you have limited resources, so which is very important to just choose one marketing channel at a time and be able to position your offer in a more sustainable way. But I said 5. This is the last one. There is a bonus one, and this is all about the purpose, because as you're trying to build a product, it's going to be hard. There is no doubt. Things are not easy. And if you don't really have a strong sense of purpose behind what you're trying to do, it's going to be really hard to stick through it, right? Because you want to really discover the real reason behind what you want to achieve. And if it's really not a strong sense of why behind it, and you're just doing it because you're just chasing the opportunity or because the money is good, it's going to be really hard to stick through all the hard days, because there's going to be technical difficulties, there are going to be marketing difficulties, product development difficulties. It's like so many things that could go wrong, and the only thing that could keep you going is having that a strong sense of purpose, that you feel like you're doing something that is bigger than yourself. You're trying to help a bigger cause, and you're contributing to something bigger than yourself, and that creates a sense of responsibility for you to keep going. And that's why there's a quote says that when your why is big enough, you'll find your how, right? Because nobody knows how to do anything when they start, but if they really have that a strong sense of why, they'll figure out that how. So that's the last one as a bonus. I wanted to leave the presentation with that, and we're gonna get into the questions, but I'd like to just mention I have a free Facebook group that if you have any question about launching product and services, I'll share daily tips over there and I'll give you support. Feel free to find it on my website at pedramdara.com, and there should be a link to that group, and it would be my pleasure to help you out with any further questions you might have. Other than that, that's it.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing your insight. I really like the quote, the last quote. We do always talk about understanding your why before figuring out how, and that's what motivates you. So great.
All right. I'm gonna now see if I can put my camera back on here.
Yeah, we can stop sharing the screen. And guys, go ahead and you can start typing in your questions in the live chat, and we'll answer as many as possible here. So I'm going to check for those now. And while we're waiting for the questions to start coming through, can you talk about one of the biggest challenges that you've faced while trying to become a product manager and how you overcame that?
Yeah, it was learning more than anything else. Because like I said, I was in an environment where there wasn't really another product manager where I could just go learn from. And it was just, it's a pretty vague topic a lot of times. So for me, the biggest challenge was actually learning. And so finding resources online, that's when I started learning about a bunch of newsletters that I could start subscribing to. And I'm following blogs from other industry leaders. And pretty much I say, yeah, that was the biggest challenge for me, just trying to learn as fast as I can. And I had to learn as I was doing the job. So it really wasn't like I didn't really have much time to learn. So it was like learning as I was doing it. But like I said, because it was something I was personally passionate about, so I just kept through it and I kept going. So if it's something that people love doing, they'll find a way.
Right, absolutely. And learning on the go is one way to do it.
For sure.
Were there any books that you found really helpful in that process?
Not then, no, not when I actually started it. This all started actually kicking in. I would say maybe a year after I started my first product management job, right? Like when I started it, it was just trying to learn from other designers, other developers, and other people in the team and engineers, and just to understand their point of view, but also figuring out that, a product wasn't just about building it and developing it. It was also about marketing it. So trying to stay in touch also with marketing people, with the legal department, and just trying to see their point of view, because it's so easy as you're just trying to work on the product. You just think of the UI, the UX, and the security, the IT part, all that. But at the end of the day, there's always like some legal components to it. There's always going to be marketing components to it. So it was important to be able to kind of spend time with other departments and try to understand their point of view when it comes to launching that product, and understanding their requirements too, more than just what the engineering team or design team wanted to know.
Absolutely. Awesome. I'm going to take a look for some questions now. I saw a couple come through. So this one is from Zaina. How challenging is it for someone from a non-tech background to become a PM in a tech company? Where should we focus our learning process?
Yeah, I mean, I personally don't believe you need to have the technical background. I mean, I had it. I studied 2 years of software engineering like back in the day. But at the end of the day, there are always going to be people who are more technical than you, and you should just respect them and try to work with them, right? Like you don't want to just go in front of your lead software designer and try to tell them, well, how they should do it. Like they know their job better than you do, right? And as a product manager, the most thing that you should worry about is the why behind what you do, right? Because a lot of times the designers and developers, they just want to make sure that they're going to build something that people are going to use, right? So you let them figure out the how, and you'll just make sure that you understand the why, and then you make that your strength, right? Because they want to see pretty much the design team or the development team, what they want to see is that the product manager understands the market, understands the users and customers, because they don't have the time to do that. So they want to make sure you do that. So if you don't have the technical background, it's totally okay. There's actually a lot of talks out there about like, you shouldn't even have it because there's a conflict of interest and all that. So what you want to do is focus on what is your strength, and that should be understanding the user, understanding the market, and don't worry about the whole technical stuff, although it helps to know enough to be able to keep those conversations going, right? But you don't ever need to fully become a technical person. As long as you can understand their language and be able to talk to them, that's pretty much, you're just trying to translate the business world and the technical world between the two. And you just need to understand a little bit of those two worlds, because there's always people who are dedicated to actually, they're hired to do that job, and that's not your job. Your job is to kind of make sure all these components and pieces are glued together.
Right, right. Well, we have another question, speaking of having a technical background or not, from Sol. How do you gain the engineering team's respect if you don't have a technical background? So what's one way of doing that?
By being able to answer their questions, right? So if somebody says, all right, why are we building this feature? And you know, if they ask that 5 whys and you can't answer all those 5s, then then there's a problem. But if an engineer is asking you 5 times, all right, why are we doing this feature? Oh, because we want to help the users do X. Okay, why do you want to help the users do X? Blah, blah, because we want this, right? So you should be able to answer at least 5 of those why questions. And pretty much if you can do that, then you can earn the respect. It's not an easy job. Like, there's always going to be someone looking at you as, with a more skeptical eye. But pretty much respect is earned, right? And the way to do that is just to make sure that you are on top of the market. So like, you want to be the first one who sees that if the competitor put a feature out there, you should be the first one who knows about that. And just by showing that you are on top of your game and you're understanding where the company is headed and where the product is headed, and you understand the vision behind it, that's pretty much how you should be able to earn that respect. Because to them, they just feel like, well, that's your job. And if you can't answer those questions, then that's when you might get in trouble.
Okay. All right. And also Nathan was asking us, what about having a circle of mentors or belonging to a product management meetup group?
100%. So yeah, there's gotta be some product tank meetup happening in your city, wherever you are. So I'm one of the co-organizers in Montreal. I actually wish I knew about them when I was at my full-time. I actually learned about them after I left my full-time job, but definitely you want to go there, right? Like, you want to spend time with these people as much as you can. So I highly recommend checking out product tank meetups, or obviously product school, and like whatever you can do to just spend more time with other people that are trying to achieve the same thing. And that's where the real learning is going to happen, because at the end of the day, you have limited number of hours in the day. And the best way to learn is always by learning someone who's maybe a year or 2 ahead of you, right? You also don't want to go and learn from someone who's like light years ahead of you, because they may not even remember how it felt to start that first PM job. But if you find someone who's just a year or 2 ahead of you, they still remember those challenges. So, and they're still willing to help out. Yeah, just have to reach out, really. People, like, you'll be surprised. Most people love to help out, but it's just people are just sometimes shy to even reach out.
Awesome, great. Thanks so much for the presentation. Before we go, I would love to hear your advice to aspiring product managers out there, those that want to break into product.
Best is, I think we just covered it, is spend time with other people in that area, but they don't always have to be product managers. Make sure you also spend time with designers. Make sure you spend time with engineers, with legal people, with marketing people, because once you can understand their point of view of all these 4 or 5 different angles, then that's probably the best way to communicate that once you start working, because you're not just seeing it from the point of, let's just develop the product, but you're also seeing it from the point of, well, this product still needs to acquire users, it still needs to make money, it still needs to not put the company in any legal situation. So there's so many aspects to it that nobody else beside you as a product manager is their job to do that, right? So the lawyers, their job is to focus on the legal stuff. The marketing people only focus on marketing, and the development people only focus on development, right? Nobody else is really trying to understand all of these together at the same time. So the more you can do that, the more value you bring to the team, and the more people realize that they actually need your role, because nobody else is dedicated to that.
Right, great. Well, thanks for the advice and the presentation, and thanks again for joining us.
Yeah, pleasure.
Thank you. And guys, as you know, we host product management meetups and events every week at our campuses in the Bay Area, in Los Angeles, and in New York City. So hopefully, if you're located in there, we'll see you soon. And yeah, if you want more information about us, you can go to productschool.com. We'll see you guys later. Have a nice day.
Awesome. Bye, Cassandra. Have a good day. Bye, everyone.